You're sterile. That's what he said. Just 2 words. Casual. Clinical. Like he was telling me the weather. I laughed at first. One of those awkward, confused laughs. Thought it was a mix-up. Maybe he got the charts wrong. He didn't laugh back. Instead, he turned the monitor toward me, pointed at a few numbers I didn't understand, and repeated it. It's not recent, Adam. Based on what we're seeing, this is likely something congenital. Congenital. Since birth. That's when my brain stopped working the way it's supposed to. Because I have a son. Lucas. 2 years old. Big smile, big eyes, calls me Daddy, like it's the only word he was born to say. Named him after my father, the man who raised me right, loved me hard, and died too young. Lucas was the best part of my life. Still is. So how the hell could this be true? I don't remember much about the rest of that appointment. I think I nodded. Maybe shook his hand. Walked out into the sunlight like a zombie. The streets of Manhattan buzzing around me, but all I could hear was that one sentence. You're sterile. I went straight home. Didn't even stop for coffee, which, if you knew me, you'd know was basically a red flag. Valerie wasn't home yet. She was working late again, quarter end or some deadline, she said. Lucas was with the sitter. I stood in our apartment like a stranger. Looked at the family pictures on the wall. One from our wedding. One with baby Lucas in the hospital. One at the park last summer, all 3 of us laughing like idiots. I felt like I was staring at someone else's life. Because in mine, this wasn't possible. We met in college. She was a sophomore, I was a senior. She was everything I wasn't, calm, calculated, laser-focused. I was broke, loud, scrappy, and completely captivated by her. I remember our first date. She showed up early. I showed up late. Still not sure why she gave me a second chance, but I'm damn glad she did. We got married a couple years after graduation. Moved into a little place in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy, but it felt like ours. We had a plan. Enjoy each other, save up, travel a bit, then kids in maybe 3 or 4 years. But life doesn't care about plans. She got pregnant 2 years into the marriage. It was a shock, unplanned, unprepared, but I was overjoyed. No hesitation. We cried together, held each other in the kitchen that night like teenagers with a secret. And 9 months later, there he was. Lucas. He looked like her. Still does. Same hazel eyes. Same smile that tilts more on one side. But he calls me Dad. He reaches for me when he's scared. And in every way that matters, he feels like mine. So what the hell do I do with this? That night, I held him a little longer than usual. Read him 2 bedtime stories instead of 1. He fell asleep with his little hand gripping my finger. And I sat there in the dark thinking, what if I never told anyone? What if I just let this be? Let the truth stay buried. But then I looked at him, and I knew. Something was broken. And no matter how much I loved him, or her, I couldn't unhear what the doctor said. I just didn't know yet what to do with it. The next morning felt wrong. I woke up early. Too early. Valerie was still asleep. Lucas was snoring quietly in the next room. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that maybe the doctor was wrong. Maybe there was still a chance. I mean, mistakes happen, right? People mess up lab results all the time. I read about it once in an article, I think. So I booked another appointment. Different clinic. Different doctor. No mention of the first test. Just a casual, hey, I've been having some symptoms. Figured I'd get things checked out. The second doctor was more thorough. Took blood work. Did a scan. Asked about past surgeries, injuries, infections. There weren't any. I've always been healthy. A little stress here and there, but who doesn't have that? The results came in a few days later. Same answer. I was born this way. The exact phrase he used was, non-obstructive azoospermia. Likely congenital. I didn't even bother Googling it. I got the picture. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my best friend, Marcus. And I tell him everything, or I used to. But this? I didn't even know how to say it out loud. Because how do you start that sentence? Hey man, turns out I've been unknowingly living someone else's fatherhood for 2 years. Crazy, right? Yeah. No. Instead, I started watching. Not in a paranoid way, at least, I don't think so. But I paid more attention. To Valerie. To her routines. Her texts. Her expressions. She didn't act guilty. She wasn't hiding anything. If anything, she was just herself. The same woman I married. The same woman who danced barefoot in the kitchen while pasta boiled. That almost made it worse. Because if she had been distant, cold, suspicious, maybe I could have started building a case in my head. But she wasn't. She was loving, supportive, thoughtful, still stole my hoodies, and sent me dumb memes during lunch breaks. Still kissed me every morning before work and whispered, "Drive safe." So either she was the world's greatest actress, or something didn't add up. One night, maybe a week later, we were sitting on the couch watching some crime show. Lucas had gone to bed early, and it was one of those rare quiet evenings. She reached over and took my hand without saying a word. Just laced her fingers into mine. It felt warm. Familiar. Honest. I looked at her then, really looked. And for a second, I almost let it go. Almost convinced myself that it didn't matter. That I could live with this secret. But then she turned her head, caught my eyes, and smiled. And I swear, something inside me cracked. Because I realized, I didn't know what was real anymore. I started replaying everything. Every timeline. Every milestone. Every moment from the past 3 years. When did she get pregnant? What month? What week? Did I travel that week? Was I sick? Were we even together? I went digging through old texts and calendar invites like some kind of amateur detective. Checked receipts, photos, emails, anything. And what scared me most was how normal everything looked. We were happy. There were no signs. Except one. And even now, I don't know if it was real, or something my brain just made up after the fact. During her pregnancy, she was incredible. Joyful. Radiant. And weirdly at peace. I remember thinking it was strange. Because all my guy friends had the same story. Their wives were hormone wrecks. One of them joked his wife cried for 10 minutes over a dropped fork. But Valerie? She glowed. She doted on me. Cooked. Rubbed my back. Told me she loved me at least 5 times a day. At the time I thought, wow, I married the unicorn of pregnant women. But now? Now I can't stop wondering. Was it love? Or was it guilt? After the second test, something in me broke. Not loudly. It was quiet. Like a hairline fracture under the surface. But I felt it every second. I started watching her. Not like a creep. Just carefully. How she talked to me. What she said. How often she smiled. Whether her phone was ever flipped face down when we sat at the table. It wasn't. She was open. Same as always. Still asked about my day. Still laughed at my stupid impressions. Still kissed me when she walked in the door. And I kept thinking, if this was guilt, she was hiding it like a pro. But maybe there was nothing to hide. That thought didn't bring comfort. It just made the confusion worse. She never gave me a reason to doubt her. Not once. When she got pregnant, we were good. We were close. Connected. We'd go on walks through the park. Talk about names. Fight over nursery colors. She was happy. And not in a forced way. Not in that "I'm covering something" way. She lit up whenever she felt the baby kick. Held my hand during every appointment. So how does that line up with this? How does she line up with this? I kept circling the same question. And then another one started creeping in, darker. What if she knows? What if she's known this whole time, and just hoped I never found out? What if she was relieved I didn't? I didn't talk to anyone about it. I couldn't. Marcus would have asked too many questions. My brother? No chance. He still calls his ex psycho 5 years after their divorce. And my mom would have panicked, started sending me articles and prayer candles. No, this wasn't something I could share. Not yet. So I kept it all inside and just watched. I checked her location a few times, just to see. Nothing strange. Work, home, daycare, grocery store, all the usual spots. Even her texts, the ones I could glimpse over her shoulder, harmless. Family group chat, office talk, dumb memes from her sister. If she was hiding something, she was a master at it. Or, again, maybe there was nothing, and I was the one spiraling. One night, after Lucas fell asleep, I sat on the edge of our bed while she brushed her teeth. She came out in her usual old t-shirt, smiled at me and said, "You okay?" I nodded. "Just tired." "You sure?" "Yeah." She paused, looked at me for a second longer than usual, then crawled into bed, curled up next to me. I laid there with my eyes open for hours. She slept soundly, breathing slow, hand resting on my chest like always. And I just stared at the ceiling thinking, I love her. God help me, I do. But I don't know who I'm married to anymore. Another week passed. Same routine. Same smiles. Same quiet ache under my ribs. Valerie didn't change. Not even a little. She was still affectionate. Still present. Still her. And I hated how much that confused me. Because nothing about her said, "Liar." Nothing screamed guilt. She was just being a good wife. A good mom. Or maybe trying too hard. God, I didn't even know anymore. Was I reading too much into this? Or not enough? I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if the truth was right in front of me. And I was just too scared to see it. I started checking timelines. Not memories. I didn't trust those anymore. Just dates. I counted backwards from Lucas's birthday. Looked at our messages. Photos. Shared calendars. But nothing stood out. No suspicious gaps. No weird trips. No nights she didn't come home. If she did cheat, she covered her tracks perfectly. And that thought alone chilled me. Because Valerie was many things, but a liar? That was never one of them. Or so I thought. One night, she brought me dinner while I was working late in the home office. Just showed up with a plate and a kiss on the cheek. "You've been working too hard," she said. "Thought you could use something warm." She smiled like she meant it. Like there was no secret between us. And I smiled back. Like I wasn't dying inside. When she left the room, I just stared at the food. Couldn't eat. I needed to talk to someone. Anyone. But I didn't know how. What do you even say? "Hey man, I found out I'm sterile, and now I think my wife might have cheated on me. But she's also still perfect and loving and happy, and maybe I'm going crazy." Yeah. Not really the kind of thing you drop over beers. And I couldn't ask her. Not yet. I wasn't ready for what she might say. So I kept circling the same question in my head. What if I'm wrong? But then came the harder one. What if I'm right? And I realized I couldn't figure this out alone. I needed help. Not advice. Not a shoulder to cry on. I needed facts. Someone who could look at this from the outside without all the noise. Someone who wasn't emotionally drowning in it. And that's when the idea hit me. Not a friend. Not a family member. A professional. Someone who could tell me the truth, even if it burned everything down. I didn't make the call right away. Just save the number. Private investigator. Simple site. Clean design. Discreet. Professional. Confidential. I stared at the page for half an hour before even bookmarking it. It felt wrong. Like I was betraying her. Which is insane, right? Because if what I feared was true, then I was the one who'd been betrayed. But still, my hand shook when I finally dialed the number. The guy who answered had the voice of someone who'd seen too much. Calm. Direct. No small talk. "Adam, right?" he said. "You emailed last night." "Yeah." "You want to talk in person?" "I think I need to." We met at a diner in Queens. Late morning. Not many people around. He was older than I expected. Looked like someone's retired uncle, not a guy who might follow people around for a living. That made me trust him a little more, weirdly. I didn't give him every detail, not yet. I just said, I think my wife might have cheated on me a few years ago. I'm not sure when. I need to know if anything's going on now. He didn't flinch, just nodded, took a sip of his coffee, and slid a notebook across the table. Write her full name, address, workplace, car make and model, phone number if you have it. I hesitated. Look, he said, I don't dig through people's private lives unless I have reason. But if you're sitting here, that means something's not sitting right with you. He was right. So I wrote it all down. He laid out what he could do. Surveillance mostly. A few days a week, spread over a month. No tapping, no hacking. All clean. All legal. If she went anywhere strange, he'd know. If she met anyone unusual, he'd document it. He wouldn't confront. Just observe. I asked him what happens if she doesn't do anything. Then that's what you get, he said. Peace of mind. Maybe not the answer you want, but an answer. That stuck with me. An answer. I wasn't even sure anymore what I was hoping for. Because if he found something, it would tear everything apart. And if he didn't, then what? Would I believe it? Would I ever really stop wondering? Still, I paid him a deposit and shook his hand. As I walked out of the diner, I felt cold. Like I just crossed some invisible line I couldn't uncross. But I also felt calm. Because at least now, I wasn't guessing. I was looking. And whatever I found, I'd deal with it. Even if it destroyed me. The first few days, I was a wreck. I'd check my phone every 10 minutes, waiting for something from the investigator. A text. A call. Anything. Nothing came. By day 4, I convinced myself that no news was good news. By day 5, I started thinking maybe he wasn't even doing anything. But then he sent a message. Short. Simple. Wednesday 6 p.m. Picked up Lucas from daycare. Drove home. Stayed in. That was it. No commentary. No. Looks clean. No emoji. Just facts. And weirdly, that grounded me. I didn't need drama. I needed truth. Even if it was boring. The next week, same deal. A couple messages, evenly spaced. She went to work. Came home. Stopped by the store. Picked up a coffee. Met her friend at a tight place for lunch. Texted with her sister. Normal stuff. Nothing out of place. Nothing hidden. And it made me feel something I didn't expect. Guilt. Because while I was out here paying someone to tail my wife like she was some kind of suspect, she was just living her life. Being a mom. Working hard. Laughing with her friends. Coming home to me every night like nothing had changed. Because for her, nothing had. Only I had changed. Some nights I'd watch her sleeping beside me. Peaceful. Mouth slightly open. Her hand resting on my arm. I'd wonder what she'd say if she knew. If she knew someone was taking notes on her parking spots and grocery stops. Would she scream? Cry? Walk out? Or worse, would she look at me with that blank stare people give when you break something too big to fix? I didn't want to find out. So I kept it quiet. And the longer it went on, the stranger it felt. This double life. Smiling in the morning. Helping her with dishes. Reading Lucas a bedtime story. Then checking my phone after she fell asleep. Hoping for nothing. And getting exactly that. By week 3, I started thinking maybe I'd made a mistake. Maybe all this, the paranoia, the second guessing, the late night digging, was just a long, slow panic attack. A delayed emotional response to something I couldn't accept. Maybe I wasn't trying to catch her in a lie. Maybe I was just trying to make the world make sense again. Because the math didn't work. Because I needed someone to blame. And she was the only one there. But if she really was innocent, then where did that leave me? What would I do with that silence? With the fact that I was the one who broke the trust first? The detective said he'd finish out the month. Give it the full window, he told me. If there's anything to see, we'll see it. I agreed. But deep down, I was starting to wonder if the answer I was chasing was one I could even face. Because if she wasn't cheating, if she never did, then how do I explain Lucas? How do I explain this hole inside me that won't close? And what the hell do I do next? I never thought I'd say the words out loud. But one night I did. And I said them to my older brother. Ethan. Doctor. Senior staff at one of the big private clinics uptown. The one with the marble floors and lobbies that smell like eucalyptus. He's 5 years older than me. Always been the responsible one. Straight A's, full scholarships, white coat by 27. But more than that, he's solid. The kind of guy who doesn't overreact. Doesn't gossip. If you tell him a secret, it stays locked up forever. And I needed that. I texted him late. You free tomorrow? Need to talk. It's serious. He called immediately. You okay? Yeah. I just need to see you in person. We met at a little coffee place near the park the next morning. He looked concerned. Said I sounded off. I told him everything. The infertility diagnosis. The timelines. The private investigator. Lucas. He listened. Never interrupted. Just stared at me with this quiet, unreadable look. And when I finished, he didn't say, "No way." Didn't say, "You're overthinking it." He just nodded and said, "You want a test?" I swallowed hard. Yeah. I need to know. 100%. He took a deep breath and leaned in. All right. We'll do it right. Discreet. I'll bring what we need. 2 days later, he came over. Brought a little kit in a zippered black case. Told me it would be a simple cheek swab. One for me. One for Lucas. I asked if Valerie would need to be involved. He shook his head. Not for a paternity check. Just you and the child. She doesn't have to know. We waited until Lucas was watching cartoons. I called him over casually, said Uncle Ethan needed to do a little game with a Q-tip. Lucas giggled the whole time. Didn't understand what was happening. Didn't feel the weight of it. But I did. Every second of it. Ethan dropped the samples off himself. Said the lab would be careful. I asked how long. Week. Maybe 10 days, max. So I waited. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't sleep at all. I kept imagining both answers. What if it said I was the father? What if it said I wasn't? Neither option brought peace. Both came with baggage. Just different sizes, different locks. When Ethan called, my heart was already racing. He didn't speak right away. Just let out a long breath, then said, I've got the results. Okay. I'm going to read this exactly as it's written, all right? Yeah. I braced myself. Probability of paternity, 0%. Conclusion. The tested male is excluded as the biological father. I closed my eyes. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just sat there with the phone to my ear and felt the world tilt. Ethan's voice came back, quiet, steady. I'm sorry, Adam. I nodded, though he couldn't see it. Yeah. Me too. I planned the evening carefully. Ordered her favorite food, that place in Midtown she always loved. 2 glasses. Red wine. Soft light. Everything felt warm. Familiar. She was in a good mood, even joked that it felt like a date night. And in some twisted way, it was. After dinner, I poured her another glass. She smiled, leaned back in her chair. You're being romantic tonight, she said. I smiled too. Tight. But I smiled. Yeah, I said. Felt like we could use it. Then I took a breath. Val, I need to tell you something. She looked up, eyebrows lifted. I didn't sugarcoat it. I had a full checkup a few weeks ago. Some issues I've been noticing. Her smile faded. Are you okay? I'm sterile. Silence. I let it land. Not recent. Since birth. No chance, Val. 0%. 2 different labs confirmed it. Her eyes didn't move. But I saw her fingers twitch around the stem of her wineglass. I went on. I also did a paternity test. Ethan helped me. Now she blinked. Swallowed. Lucas, I said. She covered her mouth with her hand and started crying. I sat there, quiet, watching her fall apart. She shook her head. I didn't know for sure, she whispered. I didn't. I thought he was yours, Adam. I swear to God. Tell me the truth, I said calmly. Everything. She nodded, eyes full of panic. There was a party. Aaron's birthday. You remember, you had a deadline that week. You told me to go have fun. I did remember. I even told her to stay out late, not wait for me. She continued, voice breaking. It was a house party. Just the girls, but other people showed up. Friends of friends. There was music, drinks. I wasn't planning anything. I just wanted a break. She looked down, tried to breathe, but the tears kept coming. I had a few glasses of wine. Maybe more. And then I saw someone. Patrick. That name hit me like a punch to the ribs. Patrick who? Patrick Martinez. From high school. I had this huge crush on him back then. He never noticed me. But that night, he came over. We started talking. Laughing. She looked at me, pleading. It wasn't planned. I didn't go there for that. We were just catching up. And then? I asked. We ended up on the balcony. Just us. More wine. More laughing. I told him about the crush I had. We both laughed about it. She paused, wiped her face with her sleeve. Then he kissed me. I sat back, arms folded. Heart pounding, but my voice stayed low. And you let it happen. She nodded slowly. I didn't stop it. It was stupid. I knew it the second it happened. We didn't even speak after that night. Nothing. And then, a few weeks later, you found out you were pregnant. Yes. And you didn't think to tell me this? I didn't know, Adam. She cried. You and I we were together all the time. It could have been you. I hoped it was you. I wanted it to be you. But you weren't sure. She covered her face, shoulders shaking. No. I wasn't. And when Lucas was born, I convinced myself he was yours. He felt like yours. You were so happy, Adam. I couldn't take that from you. I sat there for a while, letting the silence hang. She looked up at me, broken. I'm so sorry, she whispered. It was one night. The biggest mistake of my life. Please tell me this doesn't destroy us. I stood up slowly. My voice was barely audible. It already has. And I walked out. Ethan didn't say anything when he opened the door. Just gave me a quiet nod and stepped aside. I walked in with a small bag, couple shirts, a toothbrush. He pointed to the guest room. If you need space, he said, take all the time you want. That was it. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. Didn't even unpack. Just stared at the floor, still hearing her voice. It was one night. He kissed me. I didn't know. And the worst one. Please tell me this doesn't destroy us. But it did. Not with a bang. Not with a fight. It ended with a quiet click of the front door behind me. And a 2-year-old boy asleep in his bed, thinking his dad would still be there in the morning. I didn't sleep much that night. Ethan came in once, left a glass of water by the bed. He didn't stay. Just gave me a look, that kind of look only brothers know how to give. Like, I'm here. No pressure. But I'm here. In the morning, he made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table, eyes burning. Still in yesterday's clothes. He placed a mug in front of me, then sat across. You want to talk? I shook my head. Not yet. Okay. And again, silence. No pressure. Just presence. Later that afternoon, I finally broke. She told me everything, I said, voice flat. It was some guy from high school. One night. She never told me because she convinced herself it was me. Ethan nodded slowly. You believe her? I let the question hang in the air. I believe it happened once. I believe she regrets it. But I also believe she lied to me for over 2 years. He said nothing. She watched me name him after our dad. Watched me raise him. Watched me become everything a father's supposed to be, and never said a word. Ethan looked at me. She chose comfort over truth. I nodded. That's exactly it. There was a long pause. Then he said, "So what now?" I stared into the coffee mug like it held the answer. "I don't know," I said. "I love that kid. More than anything. He's my whole world." "You don't have to stop loving him," Ethan said. "No test can take that away." "Yeah," I said. "But it changes everything." I didn't know if I could stay. Didn't know if I could leave. I didn't want revenge. Didn't want to punish her. I just wanted my life back. And that life was gone. I leaned back, exhaled, and said the one thing I knew for sure. I'm not going back. Not yet. I called her 2 days earlier. Told her I wanted to talk. One last time. In person. At the house. Her voice on the phone was quiet. Careful. But there was something in it. A flicker of hope. I could hear it. She thought maybe I was ready to forgive. She was wrong. I showed up at 7 o'clock sharp. Same door. Same hallway. Same scent in the air, faint vanilla and lemon from those candles she always loved. She smiled when she saw me. Nervous, but soft. Like she wanted to believe the nightmare was almost over. We sat at the dining table. Just like we used to. She poured tea. Her hands were shaking. I'm really glad you came, she said first. I nodded. I figured we should talk face to face. Be adults. She looked at me for a moment, then leaned forward. Adam, I know what I did broke everything. But people survive worse. Some couples make it through things like this. I didn't answer. She took a breath. You love him. I've seen it every day. And I know deep down, I still love you. Her eyes started to fill. If we go to therapy, if we really try. I shook my head gently. Val? Stop. She froze. The silence between us was heavy. Like everything unsaid was pressing against the walls. I'm not here to patch things up, I said quietly. I'm here to tell you what I've decided. Her hand slowly dropped from the table. I've filed for divorce. The papers are almost ready. She looked down. I'm removing myself as Lucas's legal father. All documents, all rights. It's being handled. A single tear slid down her cheek. You don't have to do that, she whispered. You can still be his dad. You are his dad. No, I said. I'm not. I let the words settle. Not harsh, just final. Then added, I'm moving to Miami. She looked up sharply. There's an offer there. Something long-term. And honestly, I need the distance. I need to go somewhere that doesn't have your voice in the walls. She broke then. Silent crying. The kind where the breath catches and you can't look someone in the eye. I stayed still. Not out of coldness, just because if I moved, I might fall apart too. After a while, she whispered, So that's it? I nodded. I loved you, I said. Truly. And I would have done anything for you. You know that. She nodded slowly, tears falling freely now. But I won't spend the rest of my life living with a lie. Or pretending that what we had still exists. You're going to forget us? She asked. I looked her in the eye. I'm going to try. And I stood up. She didn't stop me. Didn't beg. Didn't scream. She just sat there, hands folded in her lap, breaking quietly. And I walked out of the house I once called home. Miami was everything I hoped it would be. Loud. Hot. Restless. The kind of city that doesn't care where you came from, only where you're going. I rented a small apartment near the water. Nothing fancy. White walls, noisy ceiling fan, big windows with sun that didn't ask permission to flood the room. I started working almost right away. A mid-sized architecture firm near Brick Hill. Good people. Better pace. No one asked about my past, and I didn't offer. 6 months passed fast. Then came Natalie. We met at a bookstore cafe, the kind where people pretend to read but mostly just make eye contact over cappuccinos. She was reading Sapiens. I made a joke about how everyone who reads that book suddenly thinks they understand the universe. She smirked and said, "That's rich coming from someone holding Malcolm Gladwell." Touché. We talked, then talked again. She gave me her number. I waited 3 days, then called. She liked that. She was 27, bright, quick, always had something smart and slightly sarcastic to say. Born in the States. Parents from Odessa. A little accent on certain words, but only when she was tired or laughing. We became friends first. For real. No pressure. No games. Just long walks, shared music, dinners that turned into midnight conversations. And somewhere between all that, it shifted. One night, I told her everything. The marriage. The betrayal. Lucas. The test. I didn't dramatize it. Just laid it out like facts in a case file. When I was done, I said, "If that's too much, I'll understand." She didn't flinch. She reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "You're not broken. You're just honest. That's rare." And just like that, I knew I could love again. We're not married. Not yet. But I've been looking at flights to Rome. She loves that city. Talks about it like it's a living thing, old and magical and full of pasta. I don't care much for grand gestures. But something about asking her under that Roman sky feels right. So maybe next month. Maybe a quiet street. Maybe a ring in my pocket. We'll see. As for Valerie and Lucas, I haven't heard from them. Not once. And I haven't looked. No social media. No. Just checking in. No curiosity. Not because I'm cold. Because that door closed. And some doors are meant to stay that way.